We as conservatives have got to stop playing defense. I feel like we are always defending, we're always apologizing. The theme of this conference is to play offense. We are going to get into an offensive mindset here at this conference, that it is time that we stop ceding ground to the left, that we're always arguing on their terms. It is time that with a sense of urgency, we start to say, here's what we believe and why we believe it. Now, if this was a liberal convention, they'd be saying, what are you talking about? Our job would be easier, everybody, if we just talked about BLM Incorporated, systemic racism, if we wore 2 masks when we walked down the street and just demanded free stuff from people at all times. Instead, our job is much harder. And one of the messages I want to convey for you tonight is something we don't talk a lot about, and that is cost. Here's the one thing that all of you are going to realize as you get involved in this fight. It's this idea of whether or not our side is going to realize we are not going to take back this country without a significant cost. This is something we don't like talking about. I bet if I went through the audience here, I could see people that lost their job because you're a conservative, that lost close friendships because you're a conservative, that got kicked out of fraternity or sorority because of your political beliefs. What does that mean? And by the way, it's the younger conservatives that are sacrificing a lot more than the adult conservatives, by the way. This is why younger conservatives tend to be a lot more, let's say, intense about their beliefs. How many of you have parents that try to tell you to calm down about your beliefs? It's because they don't realize the threat. It's because they are living in a yesteryear America where the left used to try to find common ground. We are in a completely different set of circumstances, where you right now realize that they don't want to have a debate. They don't want to try to hear the other side. They want to crush you. They want to kick you out of the classroom if you have a different opinion. They want to dox your personal information. They want to train your classmates to hate you because of your skin color. And so it's time for this next young conservative generation, and this is what you're doing in such an amazing way, to realize that this country's not going to be won over without a cost. So this is my super optimistic, uplifting speech, that when you get motivated outside of this event, you might actually have to lose something, but you know what you're going to gain? You're all going to gain something far more than a job or a promotion. Here's the only thing I can promise you. You do not have to be somebody different in public than you are in private. You no longer have to leave your house and be somebody when you no longer have to put on a camouflage uniform and pretend you're not as conservative as you really are. It's going to come at a cost. And here's the other thing. I'm going to talk specifically to everyone kind of under the age of 35. I'm 27, Gen Z and millennials. And for the adults in the room, you're not allowed to hear this. They didn't fight hard enough. They let this happen. Now, adults don't like hearing this. They're like, oh, no, we did everything we possibly could. If that's the case, why is it that the school boards have run amok the way they are? Why is it that the corporations have been run over? Why is it that all of our apparatuses have been overrun by the left? So guess what? Now it's time, at a young age, I'm talking to the 16, 17, and 8-year-olds in the room right now. We got to start to take responsibility for the country early, because we are being handed something that's subpar. I'm not blaming. A lot of adults have done a wonderful job. A lot of parents have done a wonderful job. But look at the country at large, though. If you would have asked somebody 15 years ago, school boards, do you think they matter for the future of America or not? They're like, wait, the thing that kind of like they appropriate, like how many erasers they give out at class or whatever? Now school boards are the front lines for the Take Back campaign of America against the radical anti-American left. And so here's my call to action for every young person out there, and this is what this event is all about. There's a lot of conservative events. You know what makes this event different? Students sit in the front at our events, not at the back. You know what makes our event different? Is that the students are given the preference. Because if we're honest about this, kind of the old 1980s, 1990s way of conservatism, that's not going to save America. It's going to take the 18, 19, and 20-year-olds that know what the left is up to, that are savvy enough on digital social media, that understand the cultural war with the energy and the creativity and the ambition and the willingness to fight against the people that so terribly wish to destroy us. So people say, well, Charlie, what does that look like? What does it look like to actually be able to fight back against these people that are doing these things and play offense? Here's the one thing that we have to get better at. We have to stop giving them the benefit of good intentions. I can't stand when I hear when people say, Charlie, you know that we want the liberals. We want the same thing. We just have different ways of getting there. How many times have you heard that? Let me be very clear. When you want a man to be able to compete in women's sports, we don't want the same thing, and we don't have different ways of getting there. When you're okay with 1 million abortions every single year, we don't want the same thing, and we don't have a different way of getting there. When you're okay with locking down the church and keeping abortion factories open, we don't want the same thing, and we don't have different ways of getting there. When you want to put masks on children, which is child abuse, we do not want the same thing, and we don't have different ways of getting there. Instead, it's now on us to paint an optimistic and promising vision of the America we want to live in. And we don't have to overthink this. We don't have to get too policy wonkish about this. Instead, we should say, I want a country that's enjoyable to live in, where I don't have to lock my doors at night to worry about some criminal predator walking in and harming my family. I want my children to love America again. I want to not have to doubt of whether or not a teacher that I hand my child off to is going to be teaching them anti-American propaganda. We want a self-sufficient America. We want to value people of all walks of life, including people that did not go to college, because we need more plumbers and electricians and police officers and people that work with their hands in this country. And so the question is, are we now going to be, as a generation, organized and understanding of this opportunity in front of us? So here's a couple things that we have working for us. Have you realized how miserable the other side is? Have you ever seen winners that are so angry? They won. And they're the most angry people I've ever experienced, I've ever seen in my entire life. And there's something to that. It's because we as conservatives, we don't always like these fights, because this is not the most important thing to us. And this is an important lesson for all of you, that this involvement in the cultural landscape has now been moved up in the priority, but never forget the ultimate priorities, which is honoring your Creator, honoring God, building a family, building things that matter. Now, the reason we're all here and that we're going to be here for a couple days is we believe that that way of life is now under attack. Is that in some ways we're very similar to a Roman general by the name of Cincinnatus. That's where we get the term Cincinnati. Anyone from Cincinnati here? So Cincinnatus was a farmer, went and fought in Roman wars, and then went back to the farm afterwards not wanting anything in return. That's kind of what we have to do right now. We have to drop our life of convenience and of luxury and accessibility. Sometimes that means we're going to have to pay a price and a cost for that. But I could tell you this, they're doing everything they possibly can in every way that imaginable to try and suppress your involvement. There's a lot of different things that are happening that we're going to be talking about in the next couple days. We're going to be talking about what you can do to push back against mandatory vaccinations, what you can do to take back your school board. But one of the other things we're going to be talking about is this all-out assault on American history, the 1619 Project, or otherwise known as critical race theory. How many of you have critical race theory happening in your schools? Raise your hand. About half the hands go up, college and high school. Now this is an opportunity for all of us because they have overplayed their hands. They have decided to embrace something that is bigoted and racist. They have decided to implement at a wide scale something that threatens the very fabric of who we are as Americans. So I'm very optimistic actually about the future of America if we can fight back against this form of racist and bigoted curriculum. So this is where all of you come in. Their most effective tool against you is calling you the R word. The thing that people fear being called the most is the fear of being called a racist. Now, if you are a racist, then you got work to do and you got to go apologize to some people. But let me be clear, and the media will love it when I say this. Just because you are a white person does not mean you are a racist in America. Where they are now categorizing 60+% of the entire country as being racist, but they don't even realize it. You understand what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is something that is distinctly immoral. You can either organize society as having a preference on things you can change or having a preference on things you cannot change. You see, the problem with critical race theory is that it puts the most important thing on things you cannot change, unless you're Michael Jackson who didn't change it very well. You can't change your skin color. It is immoral to organize people based on things they cannot change. In fact, we should say, you know what, I don't care about your skin color. I think your skin color is completely and totally irrelevant. In fact, if you keep on talking about skin color, you are a racist. Instead, we should talk about things that matter, things that last, such as people's spirit, their soul, their character, their actions, whether or not they're producing goodness into the world. But it's also, every single one of you have to realize the greatest trick that the left has ever pulled on you is to make you feel like your individual action does not matter. It doesn't matter if I speak out in class against my professor. It doesn't matter if I start a turning point group. It doesn't matter if I run for student body president. You got to cut out the cynicism. I can't stand cynicism. I'm sure all of you have people that are cynical around you. There are three types of people right now in America. There are you guys who are the courageous ones that are stepping up and actually doing something about it. There are the cynical people who are always like, it doesn't matter, none of our actual action makes any difference. Then there's the third type of people. The third type of people are the people that are too weak to do what they know is the right thing to do. The people that are always afraid, they're afraid of their own shadow. Charlie, I might lose my job. You know what, you might. That's right. Is the country worth it? Courage is doing the right thing when you don't know how it's going to end up. Courage is doing the thing that is moral and that is bigger than yourself. And by the way, I'm not asking anyone to storm Normandy Beach. I'm not asking anyone to do something that generations before us have willingly done so that we can be here in this convention center. All I'm telling you is to be the same person in private as you are in public. Be the same person in public as you are in private. All I'm asking is for you is to say, you know what? I'm going to put the cost aside, and I am going to stand up against the micro-tyrants and the people that try to do everything they can to infringe on our way of life. So I'm going to close with this, which is, if you right now are uncertain about what you need to do and how you're going to get involved, you're going to get that answer solved in the next couple of days. But also, you know how lucky we are to be alive in a time like this, where this entire American experiment, our home, this beautiful gift that we have been given, is now at a moment where it could shatter into a million pieces. So we have been handed something that's about to fall apart. Our generation, the millennial generation, Z generation, can be known as the generation that surprised and shocked the world, that rose up in record numbers and was the generation that fixed the problems of generations prior. And I could tell you this, the amazing thing about all of you that are involved in high school and college, you know what it's going to take for you to get there. You know all of a sudden what you're dealing against. And guess what? We're the cheerful warriors that are willing to endure and persevere past that. But I start to see hope when I see gatherings like this. I see hope when I show up to school board meetings and hundreds of parents are there contesting against critical race theory and demanding that it's removed from its textbooks. I get hope when I see how many people are realizing what's really at stake here. This is not about politics, everybody. This is simply about our nation and our country and our home. I love the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Go Tampa Bay. They won the Super Bowl. Let me tell you, though, that this is uniquely different than watching an NFL football game. Watching an NFL football game is, by definition, a spectator sport. You know what makes this different? Every single one of you can be involved in this and should be involved in this. That here's the test, and you can take the test this evening. You need to write down how much you've suffered over the last year, and if it isn't a lot, you're not doing enough to save the country. It's that simple. How much damage have you incurred to try to save the republic? Now, when I meet some of these amazing young Turning Point USA students, they say, you know what? I got kicked out of my school because I wasn't going to take the vaccine, but they forced. I said, well, that's a huge sacrifice. And that is contesting for truth. But guess what? Every single one of you are leaders here, all thousands and thousands and thousands of you. And you look around, Turning Point USA is a glitch in the matrix of what the left is trying to do in our country. They would love nothing more than have all of you be obedient and afraid and silent and be at home. But you know what's actually going to be our salvation? And I'm going to turn this thing around when thousands and thousands of charismatic and energetic young leaders like you all of a sudden start to chart the path forward in a way that is going to be one of hope and freedom and of a better tomorrow. When I started this at 18 years old, 9 years ago in this city, I couldn't have dreamt in my wildest imagination we'd be filling up auditoriums like this in our Young Women's Leadership Summit and all these amazing things that have happened throughout our history. We're going to hit 1,000 high school chapters very soon. But the real thanks goes to every single one of you. And as long as we are courageous, and we are focused on what that America is and what it stands for, I could tell you this, that the left is nervous that conservatives are going to rise up in record numbers. The left is nervous that every single one of you are going to start to take ownership for our nation, for our country, and our home. And by the end of this conference, I want every single one of you to make a commitment to do something in your local communities, on your college campuses, in your high school environment, because it's our country now, everybody. It's no longer cheering from afar. It's time for our generation to start to rise up and take back America for freedom. God bless you guys. Thanks so much.